Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasa. Okay, well, happy old year. And this is the last Dhamma talk of 2024. And we've actually not had so many in this last quarter. So um, I'll offer a reflection to mark the occasion. And like I said, to keep the Uposatha, to take time to practice, renew our precepts, contemplate the Dhamma. This is special enough. So, why mess with such a good formula? And I thought, also in keeping with what's been working for everybody, to try to tie it in with the subject we've been on the last couple of sessions, which is faith. And as it happened this morning, Jim and I we read a sutta that just picked from random on the topic of faith, and that happens to be one that I've heard several times. It's quoted a number of times because it has an important theme, and it deals with the subject of faith in a not so specific way, and it deals with the fact that when we have faith, we're able to proceed and to develop and to practice without really being able to know exactly the results at any given time. We know that we're on the right course, even though sometimes it's not obvious what the effects of each particular choice we make is. We just have this sense of going in the right direction. And that sutta is called the Adze Handle. And I will read it in a few minutes. But what this brought up for me was an idea. Recently, I was asked a question, and it's a question actually that the Buddha had been asked. So I knew the Buddha's answer, and I answered in the same way. I didn't have to think too hard about it. But the question is actually, it's very interesting because it's something that has been an ongoing theme for the last few thousand years. The question was, is everyone on the path? And you may be aware or may not be aware that this is a pervasive view out in the world that people can take, that everybody will get enlightened eventually. And this is something that the Buddha would say is a wrong view. It's seemingly very innocent. It's brimming with naivety and this sincere belief in the human spirit, and that people are intrinsically good, and that while we sometimes muddle our way through things, we'll eventually figure it out. That we grow over time, and just given enough time, we'll all eventually get to enlightenment. And unfortunately, the dark side of this view is that it defeats wholesome action. It defeats wholesome purpose. Is the idea, and this is something that's very common with many of the philosophies that existed at the time of the Buddha, was they were self-defeating. You would have a teacher who was surrounded by disciples, and they were practicing in a specific way, and they had a philosophy that was the basis of their form of practice. And basically the philosophy boiled down to, it doesn't matter what you do, you will get enlightened. And then somebody could come along and say, well, then why are you guys practicing this way? Why are you renouncing the world? Why do I have to listen to you as a teacher? Why do you abstain from unwholesome acts and practice wholesome ones? If we're all getting there anyway, why go through all that effort? You can just do whatever you want and you'll still get enlightened. And so that's the dark side of the view, is it actually undercuts all of your efforts to develop in the wholesome and to abandon the unwholesome, because the view itself says it doesn't really matter. Um, but the nicer side of it, the more naive side of this view, which again has existed for thousands of years and will exist long after my bones have, crinkled away to dust, is sort of, I mean, it's based on this idea of growth and development, and the idea that you can see this in a human life, that as you get older, as you get more experiences, you gradually wean yourself off of the silly things you were doing in your youth. Um, and so it's based on this idea that maybe we're accumulating knowledge and wisdom and understanding and skill, even if we're not aware of it. We're becoming old souls who will eventually just get tired of worldly existence and transcend. But again, the idea behind this is that it's going to happen anyway. And that really, it really, when I thought about it, it really makes you stop and question, like, well, I think the word itself needs to be studied, because the word path has existed. It was ancient when the Buddha used it. It existed for a long time. It existed before law, existed before alphabets, existed before, the wheel. They were using the word path. Yeah. And the word path, without having a dictionary on hand, so I'm sure there's one behind me somewhere, it denotes two things. It denotes a specific route of travel, and it denotes a specific destination. And when these two things are present, we call it a path. If somebody doesn't have a destination, then if they were to leave from where they're going and then they were to get to a fork in the road, it doesn't matter whether they go left, right, or keep going straight, because they have no destination. They can't go the wrong way. Yeah. And so with that as a possibility, they could loop back around to where they were. And so if somebody doesn't have a destination, you wouldn't say they're on the path to something. But also, even if somebody has a destination, if they are not taking a particular route to that destination, you would not say that they are on a path. If somebody is here in the town of Princeton and they want to go to Boston, but they head due north, then somebody who's familiar with Boston and knows the nature of Boston and the direction of Boston would not say that they are on the path to Boston. In fact, they will never arrive at Boston by traveling in that way. If somebody said, is everybody on the path to Boston? You would rightly respond in the same way that the Buddha did when he was asked the question, is everybody on the path? He would say, well, some people are on the path to Boston and some people are not on the path to Boston, right? You need to have a particular route, the designated route. It's not necessarily exact, but it has to be a route, and you have to have a destination. When we apply this to a mundane goal, like say, I want to be rich, or I want to be a rock star, or I want to be the best bread maker in Princeton, Massachusetts. It's a competition for that. Then it would be a mundane goal, but as long as I had some sort of process by which I might move towards that goal, I could say I'm on the path to being rich. I'm on the path to being a rock star. I'm on the path to being the best bread maker in Princeton, right? And eventually I could reach that destination, and then the path would be complete. When we apply the idea of path to a spiritual goal, that is something outside of the mundane, it's the same sort of connotation. Yeah, there needs to be a destination and there needs to be a route to that destination. Even if both are not fully defined, not exact, not specific. If we have some concept of both of these, then it is fair to say that we are on a path. And not all paths are created equal. Some say they might be on a spiritual path to be more loving. And this is not it's not a path. I don't know if I said that right. It is a path. Yeah. And somebody might be on a path to eradicate all hatred from their mind. And somebody might be on a path to completely overcome all suffering, to attain what the Buddha first sought before he had even reached enlightenment, which is, they called it the deathless. The Buddha could see, as could all of the seers and rishis and practitioners who had come before him, that those things which are mundane goals still terminate in death. Whether or not you reach your goal, you will still die. And so whatever you have reached will die with you. So when these philosophers and practitioners and rishis sat down, they realized, in terms of what is spiritual, what they wanted most deeply was to find that which is deathless, that which would not fall away at the time of death, that which they would not have to relinquish, give up, and lose. So they sought the deathless. They had a goal, but there was a lot of uncertainty about the path, right? The route, the lane of travel they would take to get there. And when you sat them all side by side, they were all doing different things. There was an idea of the goal, but not how to get there. And this is the amazing thing that the Buddha provided, the missing piece. He was able to reach the goal, and then having reached the goal, he was able to describe the route to that goal. And based on this, we have what we refer to as magga, or path, in Buddhism. And it's not to say it is the only spiritual path, but it is a spiritual path which has a clearly defined route and a clearly defined destination. And like mundane goals, it is also a destination that can be reached within our lifetime, which is quite special in spiritual terms. Because if we were to set out to become more loving, well, that's a kind of open-ended goal now, isn't it? You can attain it many times in your lifetime, and you can keep getting better at it. But in terms of attaining the deathless, attaining the cessation of suffering, freedom from all the causes of suffering, well, once you've done that, you no longer have to do it again. And it is an attainment which will not fall away at the time of death. And so this is what we would call fruit, or phala, in the Buddhist teachings. And so when we study enlightenment, we are studying these two things, magga, or path, and phala, or fruit. We are looking at this process of attaining a fixed destination and a route to get there, and then the attainment of that destination, at which time no more travel needs to be undertaken. And the Buddha further, because he had reached the end destination and was able to look back and describe the route, he was able to say there's several stop-up points along that route. And so as he described enlightenment, he described it as 8 stages. There are 4 paths and 4 fruits, which constitute 4 pairs. Each path reaches a fruit, and these follow on to the final one, which is the path of arhatship, and the fruit of arhatship, which is full enlightenment, at which time there is no more need for any of the other paths and fruits. That is the complete attainment of the spiritual goal of reaching the deathless, of attaining nibbana. But it occurred to me also while reading, we've been reading some suttas in the morning, that when the Buddha talks about a stream enterer, he is, and well, no, what this means. This means somebody who has attained the first stage of enlightenment. That is, they are on the path to the attainment of what we call stream entry. But the Buddha was able, he was willing to designate anybody who had a sight of the goal, who had faith in the triple gem as the bare minimum entry level. He called them a stream enterer. He called them somebody who had entered the stream. Because as he acknowledged, even to just have, which is, it's not just, when you look all the things I've described, it takes a fair bit of wisdom and understanding and trust to take on. Even to just have faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, to just overcome doubt to that degree, and to get a sight of the goal of the deathless, of Nibbana, of enlightenment, and to say, well, to do that, I would have to abandon a course which is without a route. I would have to give up just doing whatever I wanted. I would have to do what leads to that goal. Even to just undertake that with nothing more than faith, one would enter onto the path to full enlightenment. I would have said, this is not something you fall away from, because when you really see the goal and you really understand the route to get there, it has a purifying effect on the mind. It's to undertake that to any degree requires the letting go of doubt. And the letting go of doubt is the letting go of a certain level of ignorance. And the letting go of ignorance means you let go of not knowing in favor of knowing. And once you know, you can never not know again. If that made sense, you're following right along. You are still awake. And it's an amazing thing when you think about it, that once ignorance is taken away to that small degree, and faith is established and doubt ceases, it will not come back to that degree. Yeah. Ignorance will not come back to that degree, which means you are now on the fixed course to the deathless. But though it is a clear route and it is a clear destination, it's not to say we know exactly what to do. It's not to say it's obvious at every stage what we're supposed to be doing. Rather, we've got a sight of the destination, and we've let go of the doubt that it is unattainable. And now we're experimenting, we're practicing. And in modern English Buddhist speak, we use the word practice a lot. We have my practice, I'm doing the practice, I am practicing, we are practitioners. And it's a good word to describe what we're doing, because we're trying to get good at it, and we recognize that we're not. We are not masters yet. We are learning, we are trying, we are experimenting, we are practicing. Yeah. And so to be one who practices, we have to be willing to try things. And as we try things, we'll gradually figure out what works and what doesn't. And the route, the path, will gradually become narrower and narrower and narrower and more focused. And this is when we start to have a good idea of the path. We start to really get a sight of the fruit. And this is one thing you can say of somebody who's attained the fruit, is until that point, until you reach the destination, you don't fully understand 100% the route there. Because it's only one who has gotten to the destination that knows exactly what the route could look like. And so one who is on the path can make some speculations based on that little glimpse that they've gotten of what it's like to attain the fruit. but they cannot say exactly what it's like because they've never been there. But one who has reached the fruit of a particular stage of enlightenment can look back and say, okay, yeah, no, you're going the right way, or a little to the left or a little to the right, but you keep coming, you've got more ahead of you. They have a vision of the route. They can start to evaluate for others who are coming after them what to expect, what to look for. And so this sutta is Samyutta Nikaya. It's the chapter 22, and it's sutta number 101. I briefly do this because this is the Buddha talking to this question of, is everyone on the path? But he's also talking to the faith followers. He's also talking to the people who are on the path who are not sure if they're really doing it right. So the question in their mind. And those who are not yet established as faith followers, who are looking and wondering, well, what if I just really want it? What if I bow down to the Buddha, I bow down to the Buddha statues, I bow down to the Bodhi tree, what if I recite the Dhamma every day? What if I set the wish in my heart? Oh, may I attain full enlightenment. And maybe I won't have to, renounce anything. At Sawati, and this is the Buddha talking, monks, I say that the destruction of the taints is for one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know and does not see. For one who knows what, who sees what, does the destruction of the taints come about. Such is form, such is form's origin, such is form's passing away. Such is feeling, such is perception, such are volitional formations. Such is consciousness, such its origin, such its passing away. It is for one who knows thus, who sees thus, that the destruction of the taints comes about. Monks, when a monk does not dwell devoted to development, even though such a wish might arise in him, oh, that my mind might be liberated from the taints by non-clinging, yet his mind is not liberated from the taints by non-clinging. For what reason? It should be said because of non-development. Because of not developing what? Because of not developing the four establishments of mindfulness, the four right strivings, the four bases of spiritual power, the five spiritual faculties and the five powers, the seven factors of enlightenment, and the noble eightfold path. Monks, suppose there was a hen with 8, 10, or 12 eggs that she had not covered, had not incubated, and had not nurtured properly. Even though such a wish might arise in her, oh, that my chicks might pierce their shells and hatch safely, yet the chicks are incapable of piercing the shells and hatching safely. For what reason? Because that hen with her 8, 10, or 12 eggs had not covered them, incubated them, or nurtured them properly. So too, when a monk does not dwell devoted to development, even though a wish might arise in him, oh, that my mind might be liberated, still his mind is not liberated. For what reason? It should be said because of non-development. When a monk dwells devoted to development, even though no such wish might be arising in him, oh, that my mind might be liberated from the taints by non-clinging, still his mind will become liberated from the taints by non-clinging. For what reason? It should be said because of development. Because of the development of what? Because of developing the four establishments of mindfulness, the four right strivings, the four bases for spiritual power, the five spiritual faculties and the five powers, the seven factors of enlightenment, and the noble eightfold path. Suppose, monks, there was a hen with 8, 10, or 12 eggs, and she covered them, incubated them, and nurtured them properly. Even though she might not have the wish, oh, that my chicks might pierce their shells and hatch safely, still the chicks might pierce the shells and hatch safely. For what reason? Because that hen had covered them, incubated them, and nurtured them properly. So too, when a monk dwells devoted to development, even though he has no wish, oh, might my mind be liberated from the taints, still they will be liberated from the taints by non-clinging. For what reason? It should be said because of development. When monks, a carpenter or a carpenter's apprentice looks at the handle of his adze, adze is just a tool for planing wood, he sees the impressions of his fingers and his thumb, but he does not know so much of the adze handle has been worn away today, so much was worn away yesterday, so much before that. But when it has worn away, the knowledge occurs in him that it has worn away. So too monks, when a monk dwells devoted to development, even though no knowledge might occur to him, so much of my taints have been worn away today, so much yesterday, and so much before that. Yet, as they are worn away, the knowledge occurs to him that they are worn away. Suppose, monks, there was a seafaring ship bound with rigging that had been worn away in the water for 6 months. If it were hauled up on dry land during the cold season, and its rigging were further attacked by wind and sun, then inundated by rain, wind, and sun, the rigging would easily collapse and rot away. So too, when a monk dwells devoted to development, his fetters will easily collapse and rot away. See, in this sutta, the Buddha is through similes speaking to practitioners. And I think this is something that we all get to see as we practice. Once we've got some sense of the goal, once we've begun to establish faith that this is possible, we see the Buddha and it inspires in us a confidence that enlightenment is possible. We hear the Dhamma and the mind gets brighter. It's like, that makes sense. We see our fellow practitioners and we realize we're not alone. We realize that this is something that others see value in and are putting effort towards. And we get the willingness, the confidence instilled in us to also give it a try, not for others' sake, but because we see the value of the goal. And we realize that we can do it. So this is something you find in a stream enter, in a faith follower, in a Dhamma follower, in anybody on the path, is this faculty of faith has been established to that degree that the person is not merely wishing, oh, may I be free from suffering. Oh, may today be a day without suffering. Oh, may suffering not befall me. May no bad things happen to me. It's not merely that they have this wish, though they might have the wish or they might not. But irrespective of that wish, if they are developing, then they can know deep down, I am moving towards that goal. And I might not know on any given day I'm going to experience this amount or this amount or this amount of that goal, that I might have so many successful experiments in the letting go of suffering, or even that the things I know will work, that I will have the wisdom and the willpower to employ them at any given time. We don't know for sure, but the faith has been established that there is a destination and there's a way to get there. And so when we are faced with opportunities to put the Buddha's teaching into practice, to do it, it is not somebody else who does it, and it is not a mere wish arising, but we ourselves put forth that effort. We ourselves do this development for our own sake. And so this is something I find very inspiring about the quality of faith and faith followers. The Buddha talks about the stream enterer, and I quote this often, that they are somebody who is independent of all others in the dispensation. And that's something really special. We were talking, it was last Wednesday, was it Christmas? I guess it was Christmas, huh? We were talking about the nature of confidence and the nature of the acquisition of a skill. And when you're just reading from a book, or when you've memorized something and you're just repeating what you have heard, there is a certain ability you get from that. It's not nothing. You can follow a recipe in a book and bake some bread. yeah, or build a ship or do whatever, yeah, by following directions and going step by step. And even if you've memorized the directions, even if you've done that a dozen times, if you're still kind of going through the directions one by one, that level of skill is there. But there is another level of skill yet beyond that, where, say to Jim, if I just gave him a bucket of flour and some water and some yeast, and I said, make some bread, he might not make the same loaf he would make if he had all of his recipes and formulas on hand, but he would be able to make a loaf of bread, certainly way better than I would do. I'm pretty sure I would create a very ugly pancake. And that is a level of mastery and a level of confidence that can only be acquired by one who has developed something to the point that they can create it themselves, developed it to the point that they truly understand it and they have made it their own. And it's very interesting to take something so mundane like that, like the ability to bake some bread or the ability to build a cabinet or the ability to write a book. And once you have done that and once you have mastered that, you have the skill. And to apply that to something like spiritual practice, this is the nature of faith in the triple gem, true rooted faith in the triple gem, is that is the point of breaking away from a nondescript path, a nondescript route, and a nondescript destination. This is the point where you say, I get it. This is something that I myself will do, can do, and I'm willing to do it. I'm going to do it. And that this shatters all of the doubt. And it's very interesting. It's a lot like this acquisition of a skill, because at that point, whether or not you tell the person you can do it, or you tell them you can't do it, or conditions are easy or conditions are hard, still this knowledge exists within them. And when they are presented with a situation, they are not just going step by step by step. This is something quite invisible to somebody looking from outside. They look at somebody who's going and sitting and meditating and looking at the clock, and when it dings, they get up and they're like, okay, dust themselves off. And it seems like they're just following the formula like everybody else in the world. They're just doing the 12-step program so that they can get to whatever mundane goal that they've got. And yet, if you were to pick up that faith follower, transport them across the world, and plop them down, they would begin to try to orient themselves based on this goal that has now taken root within them towards enlightenment. And their practice might look very different, but it would still be a practice. It would still have a route and a destination that would not have changed, because this route and destination is outside of mundane circumstances, is outside of the world. Yeah. And because it is outside of the world, it is outside of death. And this is why you say of the stream enterer that they have enlightenment as their destination, even if it will take several lifetimes. But that is the nature of the skill that they have acquired, the mastery that they have acquired. It supersedes all of their mundane skills, which will fall away at death. They have figured out how to orient themselves in relation to something which is not moving, which is not changing, something which is stable, namely nibbana, the deathless, the unconditioned, enlightened. And so they will never fall away from moving towards that destination until they reach it. And I think that's all I have to say about that. Right, so on the eve of the new year, I wish you all more success in your practice, and I delight that we've all survived to this point, and we might get yet more time to develop. And it's been a joy practicing together, and look forward to more such opportunities.
Thank you.